Okay, I've got my Quicksilver hat on, which means that I have got to do with messages for you. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the scale of human consciousness. Um, a lot to do with Dr. David R. Hawkins, who was down in Sedona. He had been involved with the Sedona method, and then he adapted that scale that Sedona method used for his own work. And he called his first book Power versus Force. Force would be anything on the scale that has to do with pride, anger, desire, fear, grief, apathy, guilt, and shame. And on his scale, those ones all calibrate below 200 on his scale. On the overview, the scale runs from 1 to 1,000. It's a logarithmic scale. And 1 on the scale is the consciousness of a single-celled organism like an amoeba, something you have to look at with a microscope. That's how much consciousness it's got, 1. And it goes all the way up to 1,000. 1,000 would be the highest you can get while you're in a physical body. So Jesus, Buddha, Zoroaster, Krishna are examples of people who were at 1,000 on the consciousness scale in a human body. Beyond the human body, there are things like angels and archangels that are way, way, way higher than, even enlightened masters. So it's very interesting. What do you need to know? Well, you can buy Dr. Hawkins' book and learn all about the scale. You can get his other book, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, to learn what to do if you're at a certain level on the consciousness scale and you want to rise. You can listen to a lot of his lectures. You can order lectures from his website, Veritas Pub. And you can also get a lot of free information on YouTube. Dr. Hawkins has a lot of video clips there. So you can watch a lot of stuff for free. But if you like to read, the books are excellent. And he's got more books in his series. So, depending how far you want to go, they're all very good. There's one thing that I want to point out to you, that at the top of the scale, I'm going to try and get this to, I don't know if hopefully it's not coming in mirrored image. That seems to be a big problem for me. But at the top of the scale, from 700 to 1,000 on this scale is enlightenment. Okay? So enlightenment is, how do you explain enlightenment to somebody who was very low on the consciousness scale? Well, if I say Buddha to somebody, what did they think of? It's a religion, right? People think, well, it's Buddhism. It's like another religion. And they won't have a clue other than saying, well, I'm just going to label it religion. But for us, enlightenment is not words, okay? There's no words for enlightenment, because when you get to higher realms of consciousness, we don't use English. I've always wondered if there are non-dual languages. I don't know. Some people do what they say light languages, and it just sounds like, in some churches they have people who speak in tongues. And I listen to it, it's all like gibberish. So does it have information in it? It doesn't sound like it to me. So if you're speaking light language, What am I getting out of it? Nothing I can interpret. Is there some part of me that can interpret this stuff? Not that I'm aware of. So, to my knowledge, light language is not like language at all. It is gibberish. And if you think you're getting something from it, well, maybe you are. Maybe it's, but no. As far as I'm concerned, it's nothing. But I could be wrong. I'm not a know-it-all. What else can I tell you? Oh, well, John D., who worked with angels, got a bunch of words, and I've got a book that says what all these words are. These are the words that he got that were supposed to be an angelic language. To me, it looks like a human language. You know, they're mostly pronounceable, and they look human. So I don't think they're angelic languages at all. I think it's just another made-up language. I mean, the guy that wrote Lord of the Rings, he made up languages that the elves used, for example. What the heck was his name? His name was J.R.R. Tolkien. So, these languages are languages of duality. Duality means separate you from a separate me. And that's what we're living in on planet Earth, separate you and separate me. But when you go to higher levels of consciousness, you get into what psychologists call a transpersonal. So what does that mean? More than personal, transpersonal. So that's when you get into curious things that are not explainable to people at lower levels of consciousness. They don't make any sense. At lower levels of consciousness, you use the spoken word, and if you're literate, you can use the written word. At higher levels of language, you can use art and intuition. Those are kind of things, the way that you get information. Okay. But as far as people that are trying to raise their consciousness, or sometimes it's called raising your vibration, you sometimes will seem to be in very high states of consciousness. And other times you will find that you are at low states of consciousness, and you might even be in negative states of consciousness. This is normal. When you are trying to raise your vibration, there are all kinds of things that you don't know about that are going to knock you off your pedestal of enlightenment. So if you want to know what those things are, you can read Dr. Hawkins' book, Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, because he will talk to you about things that will come up if you're at various levels of consciousness. How do you determine what level of consciousness you're at? You have to use muscle testing. And if you go on to YouTube, you can get videos that teach you how to do muscle testing. Are you going to be able to do it right out of the box? I don't know. Dr. Hawkins said that if you're in negative states, it won't work. So you have to be over 200 on the scale in order for you to get access to the tool of muscle testing. And everyone knows from just my lectures so far that sometimes even enlightened people have states where they fall below 200. And if people like that happen to be using muscle testing when their consciousness is below 200, they're not going to get accurate numbers. And so it's very tricky. So what do you have to rely on? you're going to have to rely on you deciding that you want to pursue spiritual enlightenment for yourself. Once you have decided that that is what your priority is, enlightenment will find you. And it doesn't mean you're going to have a smooth path. You're not going to. It's just like being a student at school. If you don't do your homework, the homework ain't going to get done. And unlike school, you can't pay your neighbor to go and do your homework for you. And I know a lot of people that are on the internet that are offering all kinds of courses to teach you enlightenment. Activating your light body. No, no. Are there things they can do to help you? Yes. If you are involved with bona fide spiritual groups, the community is going to be a benefit to you. Sometimes they're called, I think it's in Hinduism, Buddhism, Sangha. It's like the community of people who are also on the path of spiritual enlightenment. And if you don't have any of them in your town, you can have these communities through. It's difficult because I was going to say Facebook groups, but when I'm on these Facebook groups looking, a lot of there's trolls, in other words, people who are nothing to do with spiritual enlightenment and there to go and just bother you. And there's a lot of people that put their problems on there. So how are you going to learn anything? Very difficult. So where are you going to find your spiritual group? If you don't have one of these spiritual groups around, make an effort to see if there's something. I mean, even these spiritual groups, they might help you get to a certain level of consciousness, and then they might be a stumbling block to you. Because the people in that group might be sitting on their laurels. And, it might be because, the community they grew up in, this is what they were taught. And the teachings are sort of good, but they're not perfect. And if the people that are in the group are not trying to raise their consciousness beyond what they have been given, passed down to them, they're going to get stuck. Now, as far as spiritual books and YouTubes and things, how are you going to figure out what's a decent book and what's total garbage? You could look in Dr. Hawkins' book, Dr. David R. Hawkins' books. He's got various books that have got calibrations of different spiritual teachers. But don't go anywhere else. Just stick with Dr. Hawkins. Now, I know that there are people on the internet who have trolls who have said that Dr. Hawkins is a fraud and a quack. He works for me. If you think I'm a quack, a kook, then I'm enlightened, because to an average everyday Joe, an enlightened person or someone pursuing enlightenment is nuts. But our society is incredibly sick. So, if you seem normal, then you are part of a very, very sick society. And that's, pretty much everybody. So, to pursue spiritual enlightenment, you're going to seem kooky. People will think maybe you're a religious nut, and you'll be incomprehensible. Some people might be, God only knows. But, if you want to do it, If you want to do it, then you won't find a better teacher than Dr. Hawkins, Dr. David R. Hawkins. And I know there's all kinds of other stuff you can get. And I have read a lot of this other stuff, and I do use it. But if you're going to go and, you're starting off and you want to get there fast, read Dr. Hawkins and stick to him, and you'll get there. And I know if you go into metaphysical bookstores, your eyes will go everywhere and you go, oh my God, there's so much other stuff that I need to know. You don't need it. You don't need it. Follow Dr. Hawkins and you will get there just fine. And once you're there, and if you want to go start, well, you probably won't want this other stuff unless, I don't know why you'd want it, because you get past it. And you get to the point where it's too many words. And a lot of this old stuff that's been passed down from ancient religions, it's complicated. It's very complicated. If you're English and this stuff has been translated from other languages, you're not going to understand what they're trying to get at. You're going to go, I don't want anything to do with this. And it's an impediment to your spiritual development to get a book that you can't understand. I know people like this. I know people who were given this kind of a course in university and they didn't understand it, and it's a huge stumbling block because they don't want to go back and look at this stuff again with fresh eyes because they couldn't figure it out when they were 22. And if you can't figure it out when you're 22, you're at your peak of your intellectual. And if you can't figure out this kind of stuff when you're 22, you're not going to figure it out when you're older. So a lot of these kind of people that were offered these kind of courses, they were mandatory. They had to take some kind of the bizarre course. Maybe it was Suzuki's Zen. You never got it and never want to go back to it. And then, when Dr. Hawkins comes along later on, and somebody who's, grew up using English as a language, so somewhat easy to listen to, there's already a negativity attached to this kind of stuff. So, read Dr. Hawkins, watch his videos. I thought of Eckhart Tolle, and in other lectures I've said that he's good. He's good for the pain body bit. The pain body information is good, but he doesn't get to transcending the levels of consciousness. He had like a sudden enlightenment. He was very depressed and he had sudden enlightenment. And he's really good at talking about the pain body, which, it might be useful for you if you often feel depressed. But his information is not as good as Dr. Hawkins at getting you to spiritual enlightenment. I mean, he got it. How it happened, it was like he doesn't explain it. His books, no. So if you're depressed and you feel like you're dealing with some kind of a demon or something, it's the pain body, and Eckhart Tolle is good for that. But if you want to know how to transcend the levels of consciousness to get your enlightenment levels up, go to Dr. Hawkins. All right. As for all the rest of his stuff, don't bother with it. It's a waste of your time. And you'll confuse yourself, and then you'll get caught up in different levels. People will say, well, you've got level confusion. And you go, what the hell does that mean? Usually the people that say you've got level confusion have got level confusion. But that's what's going to happen to you if you start asking people questions. To find a good teacher, no, you won't find a good teacher. Most of the stuff that I listen to, and I listen to all kinds of stuff, most of the stuff is shit. The stuff you get on YouTube is shit. The stuff that you pay for to go to these things, these intensives or whatever, meditation intensive, probably pretty good. If you go to Vipassana for a week or something, 10 days, that's probably going to be pretty good to get you meditating. Um, I'm not an expert in that. Do they have teachers that are going to help you beyond learning how to meditate? I don't really know. So I'm not going to slam it. But, if you want something that you can do at home, Dr. Hawkins is great. Okay? So that's who I'm giving you. Go get his books and listen to his stuff on YouTube. You can order DVDs and CDs and things too if you want. Um, if you want to get there fast, that's your guy. Okay? I'm Quicksilver, your messenger.